introductions today?
I could do well, I'm so bad at doing introductions.
Well, come on, we're gonna have to switch off sooner or later. I'm tired, so you're gonna have to pick up the slack.
Alright, he's tired, so I'll do the intros and shoutouts today. Hello and welcome. This is your Crypt Keeper's mistress, Elysa, and our other host here, the boogeyman, Johnny Zuko. And if you hear a voice in the back, it's our producer, and we're going to call her the voice that keeps you moist. Keep her a little mysterious for you. So, welcome.
Hashtag the voice that keeps you moist. All right, so what's our topic for today?
So, our topic of the day, which I'm actually really excited for, is 90s horror movies and why it has such a bad reputation. And is it really as bad as everyone says it is? We're going to talk about that.
Spoiler alert, it's not.
It's not. I think it's a great time for horror.
I think it gets a bad rap.
Yeah,
a lot. I think, the thing about the 80s is that it was so franchise-based. Mm-hmm. You had Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. You had 3 iconic slashers taking over the 80s. And so... when you get to the 90s, those franchises are starting to, die off.
Yeah, or they're trying to do, more sequels.
Or they're doing the final chapters or the final Friday or whatever. But even when you get to the 90s, there's, a distinct version of those characters. Mm-hmm. They molded them to that era. I feel like the Dream Master, mm-hmm. and Nightmare on Elm Street 4... That one felt like a 90s movie, even though it was released in 88.
Right. It was very MTV. It was for, the MTV generation.
Yeah, and so it just feels so 90s, but it's kind of mind-boggling that it came out in the late 80s. Yeah. And so I always associated that movie in the 90s because that's when I saw it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't think the 90s are as bad as everyone says they are. I think what it is that there are no franchises in the 90s that take over till 96.
The late 90s,
95, at least.
But what I would like to know is who is the one that started this rumor that the 90s horror movies are so bad? Where did that come from?
We did. The horror community. We're part of the horror community. And so, I talk to other horror fans, and they say that the 90s is a bad time because... There's no Jason. There's no Freddy. There's no Myers. There's no franchise.
Is, but they're in sequels.
But they're not like us 90 kids. Yeah. We didn't get that chance to go see a Friday the 13th movie in the theater.
That's true. So do you think it's a resentment thing? Because we're both 90s kids. Do you think, I didn't have Michael Myers, I couldn't go to the theater and watch that. Do you think that's why? Because there's such a resentment there?
I think it's there's resentment there, and it's also that nostalgia factor. And on top of that, if you really think about it, if you go through the list that I printed out, there's really not that many slasher movies.
So that's the thing.
Till later.
The 80s were, and I wanted to talk to you about this, because the 80s was known for being slasher film, slasher fest. The more gore, the better. The more obscene nudity. That's what the 80s was for. And so I had a question because I was thinking about this all week. You sum up 80s, it's slasher. You sum up 90s, what would it be? I couldn't figure this out because it's so diverse.
I think it's because just by reading this list, it's more grounded. Mm-hmm. And so you have more serial killers and forensics, Misery, Silence of the Lambs that came out in the 90s. In 1990, those were the kind of slasher movies that we got. Was those kind of thriller mysteries?
Okay, so it's more in the mystery.
Like trying to make them smarter.
That's the thing. It got really smart. Yeah. You had really the psychological aspect. I feel in the 90s, and you had Seven. You're trying to uncover this killer, but there's a mystery and there's a game. There was more games, and I feel it was very. It made you think.
Attention.
It made you pay attention
instead of going to the bathroom in the middle of the movie and coming back and you didn't get lost because it was just another person getting stabbed.
And that's what the 80s was. It was just kill, kill, kill. Yeah. I mean, we love it. Don't get me wrong, but it was just kill, 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 mindless killing. Where the 90s, I feel, did get that smart, that introspective kind of mode. But I couldn't sum it up. I really couldn't find a word for the 90s.
I mean...
And did slashers ever really make a comeback when you think about it?
Yes, they did. But we'll talk about that. We'll get to that.
When we get there. But I'll also raise a question. I think it hurt. But at the same time, like, just going through this list, it's pretty, like, amazing because you have, like, I feel like the 90s solidified the genre as more as an art form. Because, I mean, think about it. In the 70s and the 80s, horror was looked upon as an exploitive film.
Right.
It was exploitive. And so that's why people wanted slasher films, because it was a form of exploitation. That's why rape revenge films back in the 80s were so big back then, because it was just so exploitive that we're just gonna do that. Right. In the 90s, you didn't see that much all that often till Hostel and Saw and all that. But in the 90s, it was more serial killer. It was more about technology. It was more about dolls for some reason. I don't know why.
Lots of dolls.
A lot of dolls. You know what I mean? Yeah. I will take back my previous statement that there was one franchise in the 90s that we did get, and that was Child's Play.
Yeah.
So 2, 3, and Bride.
And I Know What You Did Last Summer. But again, we'll go there. But, you know, as in the early 90s, it was really more like forensics and technology and serial killer based, and it was really it started off with Misery, yeah. And Kathy Bates, I believe, won, right? I think she won Best Actress for that movie. And that's great for horror fans, because like you never see horror films win. I mean, you see The Exorcist was nominated and won, but Jaws won, I believe, as well. But then starting in the 90s, we had movies like Misery and Silence of the Lambs, where like horror's finally, that's where it was getting recognized. It was getting respect. Like, we can be taken seriously, and they are artistic. You know, they're not just mindless movies. So that was exciting to see. And I feel like we also had a lot of female killers in the 90s. Name one. Well, Misery, and Basic Instinct, that was a little later. That's more like a thriller. More like a mystery. But see, again, like, mystery thrillers and suspense often gets locked in with horror, though. It does, yeah. Because even though it's not like a jump scare, it's a psychological scare on, like, trying to play with, like, a mind fuck with you and trying to scare you, and think, like, ordinary situations can be really extraordinary. And so a lot of the times, like, when you get those kind of movies like Fatal Attraction, of Basic Instincts, The Hands That Rocks the Cradle, The Good Son, stuff like that, you know, it's psychologically based. Yeah. And so it scares you, because then it puts you in a real life situation. Right. And then you're like, oh shit. Like, then it makes you think, oh, this could really happen. I'm not running from some dude in a hockey mask. I'm actually running from my neighbor or someone my stepkid. Yeah. And that's what makes it even more scary.
I would bet too that a lot of people that like the thinking horror movies probably do not like slashers, like are not necessarily fans of the slasher movies.
But I find that interesting, because I know a lot of slasher fans, and a lot of slasher fans like those kind of movies. And I'm one of them. Yeah, I'll speak right here. Misery, Silence of the Lambs. I
mean the opposite. Not that, like that. I'm saying
you're saying the psychological people don't like slasher.
Well, I think that probably has a wider audience, because there's more at play instead of it just being blood and gore. Like, just blood and guts. There's people like, you can watch a movie like that, and there's things in common with movies that are not horror movies, like where you still need to be forced to think about what's going on. And so I would bet that a lot of people that like the horror the thinking horror movies are probably not slasher movie fans, although vice versa.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, because serial killer movies are a type of slasher movies. And so, when people want to go and do that,
I'm personally not a fan of slasher movies.
But I'm not speaking like you personally. I'm talking about just like as a group, because like I know people.
I'm not a fan of slasher movies, but I like Silence of the Lambs.
People that like Silence of the Lambs, Silence of the Lambs, they would like to go see like Henry. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because that's like a type of a slasher movie, but it's grounded and really reality based.
It was I think Henry, I mean, that really broke the wall for a lot of serial killer movies, because it was very graphic. There wasn't a lot of blood and, slasher guts and all that stuff. But that scene where it's kind of like a documentary, the way they film it. You never really saw that in a horror movie before.
No, because it looked really real.
It was realistic.
Yeah. And the practical effects, everything in that movie just made you feel very uneasy,
very uncomfortable.
Yeah, you know,
like it looked like, am I watching a snuff film?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's like, you know, I try to watch that movie and it's like, dude, I don't know if I can watch this movie.
It's hard to sit through for sure.
Yeah, it is. And so when you get to like mid 90s, 92, 93, then you have movies like, you know, then you start seeing a trend.
Yeah.
Which is like they're starting to move away from slasher movies and starting to get into more psychological. Because the list I got here, if you look at it, there's really the fantasy aspect of horror movies are kind of far in between.
Yeah,
because if you think about it, they're really far. But a lot of them kind of like what's it? Like Body Parts. That's the 91 Body Parts. But then in that same year, you have Cape Fear.
The remake of Cape Fear, yeah.
You know,
which was really good.
And so, which one do you think people are going to flock to?
That's the thing. Well, because you have Robert De Niro, right? Mm-hmm. So people want to see
him. You got
a
big name actor.
You got big name actors, yeah.
You know, taking a chance on a role that, you know, it's like, you know what? I can pull that off.
Yeah.
And so I think the 90s was, but again, it's us, the horror community. We look at the 90s as a downtime. A lot of people have said it's a transitional period till we get to Scream.
Which was 96. Yeah, I just feel like that's such a shame because I get it, you know, especially those of us who were born like in the late 80s, you know, but I want to get back to the theme of the 90s because I do feel it was very playful. It was very childlike. I mean, like you said, you had those doll movies, you had, you know,
you even have a couple werewolf movies like Blood Moon, you know?
Yeah, but then also you had shows too. You had television that was very kid friendly, you know, and you had books at the time, like R.L. Stine was popular. I think Goosebumps came a little later. And then, you know, Are You Afraid of the Dark? So they did kind of market to kids a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I do feel like it was very playful and very childlike, but at the same time,
I do think the 90s took more of a risk because they were because they expanded on certain things, supernatural, zombies, monsters, voodoo curses, PTSD with Jacob's Ladder, and so
it was like they didn't say no. You know, they just kind of took whatever was there that they liked, and also to add to this, I think a lot of these didn't really do well because they were straight to video. You know, you couldn't really go to a theater to see a lot of these. You had to wait till it came out on video.
Yeah, a majority of them. And if it wasn't backed by a big studio, you know, chances are you probably didn't see it.
And back then, like, we didn't have where we, like, a movie comes out now and then it's on VHS or it's on DVD or Blu-ray, like, a month later. Back then, you had to wait like a year sometimes for these to come on VHS.
6 months to a year, at least.
6 months to a year. And then you had to go and physically rent it at a store like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video. So,
you know, some of my best memories were as a kid going to my local video store and just sitting in the horror section for like hours and just looking at all the cover art.
That was honestly the best time because you would go there and like no one would be in the aisle. You always wanted to meet someone cool in the aisle, but that didn't really happen. But you just got to see all the covers. Mm-hmm. And back then they made the posters and the covers so visually artistic where it's like, oh, this one looks cool. Like, I want to watch this one. And then, you know, it's more of a physical, I don't know, there's just something about it being physical and in your hand and you being able to look at it that was just more gratifying, at least for me. But, yeah, and then you got to take it home, pop it in your VCR, watch it at night or on the weekend with your friends.
So a VCR is a is a tape where you put a physical tape in there and you watch a movie on a 27-inch TV screen.
And it's fuzzy. It's fuzzy. They show trailers.
And then there's like this thing called tracking where you push like the negative or the plus sign and you try to like straighten out the film.
Warning about copying the movies, then you'll be arrested.
Which we never did. I'm just saying.
Wink, wink.
You know, and then also we had Leprechaun.
Well,
the 90s gave us Leprechaun, which also in turn gave us Jennifer Aniston.
That's right.
So, I mean, who really won there? I mean, come on.
That's right.
And then we got, 2 more Leprechaun movies. 2, 3. The Hood and Space
Leprechaun
didn't come back to like 2000s, but
But hey, he's with you for every St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
So you're welcome. But yeah, the early 90s was definitely, it was just kind of all over the place. But 92, I feel like we got a lot of good ones. I mean, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is weird because I always thought Buffy came out in the late 80s for some reason when I was younger. I just always thought it was an 80s film. But no, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Candyman, which is like one of the best in my opinion.
Which is arguably one of the best 90s. Probably, I don't know if I should save this argument for later till we get to it, but maybe we can have it now.
Okay.
So,
I'm scared.
Because in the 90s, so so in the 90s, what are the 90s known for? They're known for 2 movies and 2 movies only. Actually, if you really think about it, when you really think long and hard about it, the 90s are really known for 2 things: Scream and Blair Witch.
True.
Those are the movies that often get credited for, reinvigorating the slasher movie or the horror fan, which Scream did.
It did.
It did, because right after that, you have I Know What You Did Last Summer, Campfire Tales, Cherry Falls.
I love Cherry. Okay. I could do a whole episode on Cherry Falls because that is one of my favorites.
You know what? Movie of the week?
Oh, gladly.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Gladly.
Done.
Because that'll be, but I
Done.
love that movie. Okay, anyways.
Okay, but those are the 2 movies that are, often credited for saving horror. Mm-hmm. But when you really think about it, there's plenty of other movies that are worthy for that title. Candyman.
Yeah.
Arguably one of the best 90s horror movies to come out in that decade.
Absolutely.
People, fans of Scream are going to argue. And yes, it didn't have that impact, that cultural impact that, it had, like Scream had. Mm-hmm. But that was a fucking movie that literally scared the shit out of you. And not many movies.
And it's an urban legend.
Yeah.
That's the thing I want to add too, is the 90s gave us a lot of urban legend films. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally urban legend, which was what, 98, I think? Yeah,
98.
And the Campfire Tales also had urban legends. So Candyman, but as a kid, like, you always heard of Bloody Mary or the Candyman. And the whole mirror, like looking into the mirror, that's, as a kid, you grew up with that. So to see a movie and see him for the first time and how scary it is, and like his voice, but yet he's so charming.
He's so seductive.
He's so seductive.
And you're just like, it's kind of off. It's kind of like, you tend to forget that he's a bad guy. Yeah. Because you're just like so hypnotic by his voice and his presence.
Yeah.
And every scene that he's in, he commands it.
Oh, for sure. I wanted more of him just because he was demanding.
And I think that's why that film works, because the less you see of him, the more of when you see the gruesome things happen, mm-hmm. the more impact that it has. Mm-hmm. You don't see him, killing Virginia Madsen's best friend. And so I think that's but then when you see him kill the doctor,
right? Oh, that scene was so scary.
And so you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was scary.
But I mean, that's the question though. Like, is Candyman the best horror movie to come out of the 90s?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's I'm just so biased with Scream. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know me, and we've had so many conversations. I love Scream so much, but definitely when we do our top 5, Candyman, I would say is absolutely
in there.
It's definitely in the top 5. And I don't know, it just gets so dismissed. And yes, it's had sequels. The sequels were okay. I mean, but
they weren't true sequels though, which was unfortunate too, because I would have really loved to see what happened to Virginia Madsen's character.
And why didn't she come back? Was it just because she,
I don't know. I think the studio had a different plan, because Bernard Rose and Tony Todd had a idea for that character and for that story than actually make a true sequel to Candyman. But they got cut out by Columbia, and they decided, we're just gonna remake. We're just gonna do a different movie and move on somewhere else.
Yeah. See, and that's, I don't know, because that really could have taken off. I think that was one of like the what if kind of films for me. Like, oh, what if it went that direction, or But I mean, I'll watch it every like Valentine's Day, just because I think it's not just a horror film. There's such a romance vibe to it, and that's what I like. I love those romance horrors, and it kind of brings back the feeling of the Universal horror films, like Phantom of the Opera, Creature from the Black Lagoon, where there's a leading lady, and then the what do you call him, the monster, I guess, or the villain. And I feel like that kind of brought it back. So that was like exciting to see. But man, he was terrifying.
And Clive Barker, like, has a really interesting way of making all his villains very sympathetic. Even Pinhead, to an extent, is a sympathetic character, in the first two movies. You know what I mean? He has such a tragic backstory, and you kind of feel for him. But the reason he's doing this is because, one, he likes it, but two, he's like... He has this soft spot for Ashley Lawrence's character in the first two Hellraisers. But you don't see that in the third or in Bloodline.
Just the first two.
Yeah. And so, the question is Candyman better than Scream?
That's tough, Terry. That's shark waters, my friend. Like, that's really tough because they are such different films.
They are different, and they're both... they're both prevalent to their time in horror. I feel like Candyman was such a big success, but at the same time, after that, there's this dip.
Yeah.
There's this dip in horror where you don't see coming for like a long time.
There's like a hibernation period.
And then it's not till like the final Nightmare.
Yeah. Where
you see Wes Craven come back and, really say, and really kind of stick it to New Line by, reinventing Freddy Krueger. And I have to say,
the mid to late 90s really, really revitalized Wes Craven because he's done so many films, but they got kind of sideswept, The Scream and New Nightmare really made his career take off again. And thank God for those films because New Nightmare is absolutely a masterpiece.
And he made Freddy scary.
Yeah. I wasn't a fan of the makeup in that one, but the story and just,
the makeup didn't bother me as much.
It just looked too fake, though. Like, I love the old Freddy because it's just so gross. This one looked very prosthetic to me.
Yeah, I could see that.
Nitpicking here. I'm nitpicking.
But that makeup looked a lot better than the remake. I'll tell you that.
Oh, for sure. I'm with you on that.
So, but then it's, you get to New Nightmare, then you get to Scream. And then you have this boom.
Yeah.
It's funny to me because, I think Candyman should get a little bit of props, but it doesn't get props. I don't know why. It's just
why do you think that is, though, in all honesty?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But that is a film that is overlooked. And it's getting a re-release in November by Scream Factory.
Nice.
So, obviously there's a rabid fan base for it.
There are fans of it. It just doesn't get that notoriety as like these other ones. I don't know why that is.
But then again, I kind of answered my own question earlier when I say that impact that it had.
Yeah.
Because Scream and Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Those two movies helped at the same time hurt the horror movies.
Yeah.
Because then you had every other movie trying to be like Scream. Trying to be self-referential.
Timeline too. Both those are later on.
Yeah, but that's in 96.
Scream was 96, yeah.
Candyman was 92? Early on, and then you had the kind of a lull, right? Well, so maybe it's that it's just not as fresh in the mind.
Yeah.
As Scream.
Because
and you don't really remember the actors in it, like Drew Barrymore.
They're relevant today.
Yes,
they're relevant
people
today.
Who weren't even
but they were hot back then, though.
They were hot back then.
And then, but again, too, like the first 10 minutes, he does what Alfred Hitchcock did in Psycho, which was kill your leading lady.
Yeah, one of the best opening scenes
which is
ever.
a fucking ballsy move.
Yeah,
and that was Barrymore's idea.
And she was an A-lister, you know? Like, to kill an A-lister off in, like, less than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You didn't see that a lot of times.
And I think that's one of the things that kind of made that movie, like, stick out, because then it showed, like, no one's really safe in this movie.
No.
You know, like, anyone can really go.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it worked. And then it worked against itself, because then you have these cheesy knockoffs trying to duplicate what Scream did.
Well, wait a minute. What's a cheesy knockoff to you?
Urban Legend.
Oh my. Okay. See, I feel like I'm the only one that really liked that movie.
I liked it as a kid. I haven't seen it since then, but I'm just using it as an example. I'm not saying it is cheesy, but that's the first one that came into my mind.
I mean, Jared Leto.
I mean, I was going to say Cherry Falls, but I'm not going to go
Jared
there
Leto.
yet.
Yeah, I fucking love that movie so much. Okay.
But see, the thing is that, like, you have, like, and then you have, like, these direct-to-video horror movies, right? Horror movies.
Mm-hmm. A lot back then.
And they're all trying to copy the Scream formula.
Yeah.
And a lot of them didn't work.
It was such a successful movie. That's when everyone in Hollywood's like, okay, how can we make money? You know, this is hot right now. Let's keep they're knocking them out like hotcakes.
And then you had I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Which was a book by Lois Duncan that Kevin Williamson wrote. And Kevin Williamson also wrote Scream. And that, I will say this, Kevin Williamson got really hot in the late 90s. Not looks-wise, I mean, like, his work-wise. Like, he did Teaching Mrs. Tingle, he did The Faculty. I mean, he like, and then Dawson's Creek, you know? So he was known for, like, the teenager, he knew the teenager audience very well. And that's another thing, like, I feel like Teaching Mrs. Tingle kind of gets a pass. Like, not a lot of people talk about the movie, and Helen Mirren was in it. And
the thing is that right when that movie came out, Columbine had just happened.
Oh,
because now you got to think about that too, because when Columbine happened, that affected everyone, not just horror, everyone.
Everything. And I was telling you, because Disturbing Behavior, we talked about this in the past. That was I really liked that movie, and that kind of didn't get any attention because of
Teaching
Columbine.
Mrs. Tingle. The original title was Killing Mrs. Tingle.
They had to change it though.
And then that movie went through massive recuts and re-edits, and so the movie that you see now is not the movie they intended to put out.
Which was how Cherry Falls was as well.
Yeah, when that happened, that's the movie that suffered a lot.
It really did.
Because that is kind of like a hidden gem, even though it's bad on like all levels.
What?
It's fucking entertaining though.
You thought Cherry Falls was that bad?
I thought it was pretty bad, honestly.
Oh my god, I feel like I'm the only one that.
But
I'm not
saying that I hated it. I'm saying it's entertaining as hell, and I did enjoy it. But it's like, that's a movie that has such a great premise and had a good concept, but it wouldn't have worked as a wide release because of its content. And what it was saying,
but its content, like you could say it was Sleepaway Camp, because it had very similar elements as Sleepaway Camp.
And then on top of that, the name Cherry Falls.
Yeah, well, because that's the town that they're in.
Yeah, but there's also another meaning to it when you watch the movie.
Virginity, yeah, pop your cherry. I love that movie so much, and I thought Brittany Murphy she looked so cool. Everybody looked so cool in that movie. Like, the guy she liked was so hot. Her best friend had like cool makeup. Like, everyone just had such a cool look. And her dad was Michael Biehn from Terminator. You know? I don't know. I just really feel like, because of all the shit that they went through to make that movie, and because of the recuts, it couldn't have been as violent. It could have been more violent, but it wasn't. So I don't know. Like, but for what it is now, I still love it. They dropped
that movie very quietly.
They did.
On VHS.
I know.
And it sucked, because that is such a hidden gem, and like, that movie suffered for a long time.
The first time I saw it, I think it was like on USA.
Really?
Yeah.
I was at my local video store, and I was looking at the new releases, and I saw this cover. It was all red.
Yeah.
And you see Brittany Murphy on there, and then you see like this other cast, and then it says Cherry Falls, like in like red outline.
The red outline.
And then the white lettering.
Yeah.
So what is this? And I read the back, like, this sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I rented it, and I popped it in. I was like, holy shit, this is pretty awesome. I enjoyed it. You know, I was.
In Cherry Falls.
Yeah, you popped in.
Popped in.
Good choice of words.
Yeah, right?
No pun intended.
And so, you know, I enjoyed that movie and I thought it was really good. You know, and then it got a re-release about 2-3 years ago on Shout Factory.
Yeah, it got re-released.
And so, you know, I'm proud. I'm happy that it got its fan base back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's hope so, because I feel like everyone who, like, in the horror community, they're like, "What's that movie? Who's in it? What?" It's just
say Brittany Murphy in a horror movie, 9 times out of 10, a horror fan's gonna get it.
And she didn't even want to do that movie. She didn't want to do horror at the time. She was supposed to play Janis Joplin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She at the time, she wasn't, because of, you know, Clueless and Uptown. I don't know if Uptown Girls was later on.
I think it was,
that was later
right
on?
around the same time.
Okay, so she was gonna, and Black Swan. She was supposed to be, she was a contender for Black Swan.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So she wanted to do, like, really serious roles, and she's like, I don't want to do horror, like, so she didn't want to do it.
A lot of actors got their first break in horror, though. They did. You know, I mean, and it's sad, too, because this is around the time where horror is still kind of looked frowned upon. Yeah. And it's like, well, no, you need to stay there, and we're just going to keep you there. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, but then you get to Blair Witch.
So this movie really
fucked the game up.
It fucked the game up, and it just went a whole other direction with
You horror. Know what? The marketing on this fucking movie, though, was brilliant.
They really, like...
They played up that angle. They knew
what they were doing back then. This was, like... This is before, like...
This is pre-social media.
This is pre-social media, but the internet was there. So they had a website.
Yeah.
So as a kid...
I think it's still active.
Is it really?
I think it's still active.
I should go check that out. So as a kid, I didn't see Blair Witch in theaters, but I did look at it online, and it, like, the website was, like, scary because you had the little wood, the little wood figures that they have that they made, like the branches or whatever, and there was such a mystery behind it because they really, really made it seem like these actors were not actors and that they're dead, and that it was literally found. This really set the bar for found footage. Yeah, and that's a whole other market, found footage.
Yeah, and also, people realize that we can make a cheap movie for literally nothing.
Yep.
You know? And
talk about true independent filmmaking, right?
Yeah, you know, and I'm not going to knock on them. Like, dude, they did it, and they came up with a good story. They played up that angle. I remember trying to go see this movie in the theater. Every show was sold out.
But did you end up seeing it in the theater?
No, I didn't. I ended up renting it, but... The thing is, the ending was spoiled for me by my dipshit friend who said, "Oh yeah, nothing happens," and then they die. It's like,
screw that guy.
Like, fucking seriously, dude. Like, come on. Like, I haven't seen it. It's like, don't worry, dude. It's like, it's nothing, dude. Blah blah blah. And it's so funny to me that, like, how the ending gets tossed away because if you're not paying attention in the interview in the movie in the Blair Witch. One of the interviewees says, "Oh yeah, she used to take kids and put them against the wall, facing the wall, while she killed the other person, and then she would kill that person." And it's funny to me how no one else at that time, or at least none of my friends, picked up on that.
I picked up on it,
and I was like, dude, the witch did it. Like, come on, like that's pretty fucking scary. Like.
It's funny.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
But it works because you don't see it. You hear her, like, screaming.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people were pissed off is because you don't actually see a witch. Mm-hmm. And that's people... Because slashers was very big, and the killer's always revealed at the end. You know, this is like late 90s when slasher became a thing again. So people didn't get that reveal, you know? But there was just such a mystery behind this film because I thought, like, oh, it's real. Like, it's real. Like, these people really died. Like, this is a documentary. Like, I really thought that. And then, like, years go by. And, like, even the actors, like, they couldn't... I don't know if they were under contract, but they couldn't do other films or something. Remember hearing about this?
Yeah,
like,
they actually had to sign, like, a year contract saying that they needed to stay away. And I remember the lead actress's mom got letters from fans saying, "We're sorry that your daughter passed away."
No way.
Yeah. And it's like, holy shit.
Oh my god.
It's like, it's a movie, dude. It's like...
Well, they totally utilized the internet boom.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah, and so the thing that I was trying to say, though, is, like, this movie went viral before people even knew what viral was.
Exactly. This set that market.
Yeah, and so, you know, Blair Witch was that catalyst for Paranormal Activity, Cloverfield, all those, Poughkeepsie tapes, Session 9. You have all these movies being made.
VHS 2 and all
Yeah, and so, like, you have all these movies being made for, like, literally nothing.
Yeah.
And people are like, ching.
How much did Blair Witch make? They made, like, a lot, right?
It was the most successful independent film ever, and it beat, I think it was 10 million or something like that?
Like opening weekend or something? Damn.
Yeah, well, let's see.
Because I know The Sixth Sense really made a lot of money the first weekend that it opened.
Oh, shit.
That set the map for a whole other thing. But back to Blair Witch, though, that wasn't the first found...
That's my fault, too, because literally that's also known for that, too, with the 90s. Yeah. As you can tell, I'm not a fan of The Sixth Sense. But,
but back to Blair Witch real quick. That wasn't the first found footage horror movie.
No, it wasn't.
McPherson tapes, which was the UFO abduction that came out in the late 80s. But it didn't get, like, resurfaced. Like, a lot of people haven't seen this. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, you gotta... So it's on YouTube. It's very grainy. There's two titles you could do. It's McPherson tapes, or it's like UFO abduction.
I've heard this from somewhere.
Yeah.
That title sounds familiar.
So it's like a family that's gathering for like a birthday party or something, and there's like there's weird alien things going on. They see lights, and then the aliens abduct them. But the actors also back then, they had to stay out of the light. They couldn't do a lot of things because people wanted... So they were like the original Blair Witch people. Mm-hmm. But because of the internet, it didn't get... there wasn't really internet back then, so it didn't get as much attention as Blair Witch did. But, yeah, so crossing to The Sixth Sense, that really changed horror as well. Even though it's not pure horror, it's more like...
Okay, so... As of now, the Blair Witch, domestically... has made over $140,539,099.
And that's just the first one. That's not even
That's
like
the first movie.
Wow.
How much did it cost to make?
$60,000.
That's unbelievable.
Opening weekend, limited opening weekend, $1 million.
Wow.
Wide opening weekend, $29 million.
For back then, that's big.
You know what I mean?
That's big, yeah.
So, like, that is arguably one of the most successful independent films ever made for $60,000. Wow,
that's insane.
That's just like damn.
Smart marketing.
Very smart marketing. Man, I wish I was like on their marketing team. But yeah. So I mean, that really set the bar for things.
It did, and then
and now we overuse the whole found footage. We do. We overuse. I feel like people way abuse that now.
And again, that goes back to the Scream where they overuse the self-referential aspect of that slasher. Because now you can't even enjoy a fucking slasher movie without, someone making a reference joke. You know what I mean?
And then also Scary Movie kind of ruined Scream.
Yeah, it did.
It did. Like, people don't... the thing that's... And I love Scary Movie. I thought it was hilarious. But people don't take Scream serious anymore because of that.
Yeah, because it's too associated, and it came out too close.
It did, yeah.
And maybe if it was like a year later, or 2 years later, like maybe like when you have Scream 2, then have Scary Movie come out, then maybe. But when Scary Movie comes out the following year, that following Halloween, it's not a good look.
No. So, and then people joke, I know, what's your favorite scary movie? And like the mask with the tongue. So it totally like, and it sucks because Scream in itself is such a fucked up, crazy movie. Mm-hmm. And really, when you digest it.
It's really like two high school students.
Yeah.
Going out on a killing spree.
Yeah, but the whole mother thing, Yeah. Like, they kill her mother and the whole like abandonment issues. Like, it's a very heavy film. It is,
but like what I was saying, it was like you have two characters that could arguably be the kids next door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's even more scary because, shit, like I actually know these kind of kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, her boyfriend. Like what the hell? And then her best friend's boyfriend. So yeah.
And then we have to go back. I think about a year, right? Is it 97, 98? Sixth Sense?
Sixth Sense was, I think, 98 or 99.
Wasn't that close because Stir Echoes came out right around the same time.
I think it was 98.
Let's see. Yeah, 99. You're right.
99?
Yeah, okay. 99.
So that really changed things in horror.
And this is another thing where the PG-13 aspect comes into it.
Oh yeah,
because because a lot of the 90s you have hard R-rated films and horror, but then you get The Sixth Sense, PG-13
with a kid too being like the main actor.
Yeah, and Bruce fucking Willis, you know what I mean, with a crazy twist at the end, and it's like it's a psychological thriller with horror elements, but at the same time it's PG-13, so everything that you're experiencing is like you're not seeing it,
right?
It's like it's there but it's not. It's kind of like playing tricks with your mind.
Yeah. And
The Sixth Sense to me was the catalyst for movies like The Ring, The Grudge, and like all these other PG-13 horror movies that we're getting, because now they're realizing, holy shit, we can market this to a younger audience and get more money.
Right. And this is where we were talking about earlier too. This is when you really had to think while you're watching a movie. You couldn't. It's not just cheap, easy fun like these. You really had to sit back and take a minute. Like, what? And like everyone in the theater would like sigh or scream and be in such a shock, because like that's really the ending. Like, oh my god! Like you really had people involved in that ending, and that twist. So.
And this is like the first time, like, kids can actually have access to content like that.
Right.
Because when you had those kind of movies, they weren't really kind of based for kids because they were written for a mature audience.
Yeah.
But
these you could go and watch.
You can, and you can push the boundaries a little bit more, and the stories can be more complex. But at the same time, you have The Sixth Sense where it's kind of like, not dumbing down, I don't want to say that, but kind of kind of like a straight storyline where you can have where it's easy to follow. That's what I'm trying to say. Easy to follow when you have kids and teenagers and adults that can all follow this movie and be on the same wavelength. And by the end of the movie, they're all in on it.
And what's interesting too, this was not a gory movie, but yet the scenes that were so disturbing really stayed in your mind. I feel like that, because I saw this in the theater with like my mom and my sister. I mean, that scene where that kid's like, he's going to the bathroom and he's scared to go to the bathroom, and some kids are to like, because the hallway is creepy or something, or it's dark, you're scared of the dark. But that scene where he gets back and then he sees that kid and he goes, come on, I'll show you my dad's gun. And then you see his head like completely like just gone because of that shotgun. Like those scenes like really stuck with me for some reason. And then the girl, like her parents or her mom poisoning her, and she's just like throwing up. Those are really traumatizing scenes. I don't know.
And then you flip that, and you flip the coin, and then you get Stir of Echoes.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon, who returns to horror.
Oh man, it sucks too, because this movie came out so close to The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
And there's always this theory that if a movie did it first, the second movie that's following it,
it's not going
to do as well.
That really got dismissed, I believe.
Yeah, and it was a really good movie. And it shared the same kind of psychological scares, but there was actually some scares in that movie.
Yeah.
And the content in that movie was dark. Even though The Sixth Sense was dark, this went to a dark place.
That was more of a horror.
More of a horror movie.
Yeah, and for adults.
But Sixth Sense is a horror movie.
Yeah.
In its essence, you know what I mean? But this one right here is a true horror movie, and it's an R rated, and it's aimed for mature adults. And that's when they're realizing, well, our audience is aging out now. Yeah. So let's go back to the PG-13 and let's see if we can start bringing them back in again. I mean, when that movie came out on video, it found its audience.
Yeah. And
I feel like a lot of movies that failed at the box office when they got released to VHS, they found their audience.
But Stir of Echoes, I remember it was marketed a lot, because I remember I always saw the trailer like on TV.
But it flopped hard on opening weekend.
What was that 90?
That was the same year, 99.
It was the same year. Yeah. And then when did Hollow Man come out? Do you remember Hollow Man?
2000, I think.
Oh, okay. Because Kevin Bacon kind of like did a lot of films around that time, I remember.
Yeah,
Hollow Man was creepy.
Hollow Man was creepy.
Yeah.
But Stir of Echoes was like supposed to be his comeback.
It was because I mean,
he had been gone for like at least 5-6 years.
Yeah.
At least because he hadn't done anything. I can't remember the last movie he did before that.
I can't. It wasn't.
Footloose? No, that's true.
Footloose. Yeah, I don't remember. Like
no, Sleepers. He was in Sleepers.
But that was like mid 90s.
Yeah, it was like 94. No, yeah. 95, 96.
Okay.
That was when he was playing the corrupt prison guard.
That's right. So this was kind of like Stir of Echoes was supposed to be like a comeback for him.
Yeah, I was supposed to be like, oh, he still got a name.
Yeah.
Didn't work out. Worked out for him in the long run.
Yeah.
But, The Sixth Sense often gets credited for that,
Yeah, for sure. And I'd like to revisit Stir of Echoes, actually.
That is a really good movie, and it still holds up.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it doesn't have that bad CGI that dates it. And that's another thing.
Movies back then didn't have horrible CGI, in my opinion. Well,
no.
some of them.
No, they did.
Well, I mean,
Lawnmower Man, come on.
Okay, but that Lawnmower Man has like that sci-fi element. So.
Ghost in the Machine.
Well, I mean, like horror, like the murder and the psychological horror. When you look at like Sixth Sense or Seven and Scream, there's no CGI. It was just pure special effects. So, or makeup special effects. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about. And that's another thing too. I feel like the 90s had a lot of sci-fi mixed with horror.
Yeah.
I mean, Event Horizon, which was so scary, so freaking terrifying. And still holds up.
I remember you talked about this, like I think it was last week, and you said something about Event Horizon. I was trying not to engage because I was like, okay, we gotta go.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to talk to you anymore.
No, it was like we were all feeling like, okay, we overstayed our welcome, so time to go. But I think I wanted to say, because I often give my friend shit because he's not a horror fan, but the one horror movie that he likes is Event Horizon, and he's a big Star Wars fan, and so I always give him shit for it because like you like Event Horizon, so I shouldn't even take your your thought on horror seriously, so just chill out. And so, but I like Event Horizon. Even though all the shit that I give him, I think it's a really good movie and it still holds up. Even though there's a little bit of CGI that's pretty bad, a lot of the practical effects in that fucking movie still hold up.
And it's like a haunted house in space.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best way to sum it up.
It's a possession movie.
Yeah. And it's got Sam Neill.
Thank you.
Sam Neill. Hello.
Sam fucking Neill.
Who was also in The Mouth of Madness that came out in the 90s, which was an amazing horror film as well. And he did Jurassic
often
Park.
Gets overlooked.
It does. But people love it now.
Yeah, they do.
It did get dismissed, but now it's got such a huge following. And everyone's like, oh, this was one of the best horror movies ever. So it is getting its
I would argue probably one of Carpenter's last best films. One of his last great films. Yeah. I think that was his last great film, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
and
after
Sam
that,
Neill's so good in it though.
Fucking Sam Neill is just creepy.
He's so good.
I'm a big Sam Neill mark, and so I think he's a really good actor.
You know what sucks though? I feel like he is a leading man, but
they don't treat him like one.
They don't treat him like a Bruce Willis or a Stallone. Like they don't. I don't know. Like that just. Why?
He was in one of the biggest fucking movies.
Jurassic Park.
Exactly, and you're still not sure? Come on, man.
I don't get it.
But I do like what Event Horizon does because someone pointed this out that they switch it where you spent half the movie with Sam Neill.
Yeah.
And then they switch it where it's like the opposite now. Like who you think the protagonist is really the antagonist, and who you think the antagonist is really the protagonist.
They mind fuck you.
Yeah, and so
they really do, which is a big
thing. This was a really good vehicle for Lawrence Fishburne as well too.
Yeah, because then he was also he got started in horror too. He was in Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Yeah.
And then he did The Matrix in the late 90s. So that, I feel like.
So where do we stand? Like, where do we stand as the 90s? Like, what do you think? Do you think that it was a transitional period, or do you think it was as solid as it could have been?
I think it's kind of all the above. Like, I really do think it was a transitional time. A lot of people didn't really know what to do, and they just kind of accepted whatever came their way. But it was so diverse, and that's what I liked about it, because it had so many different subgenres.
And it wasn't so franchise heavy.
It wasn't so. It was more originality, I feel.
Yeah.
I do feel the 90s was super original stuff. Yes, there was sequels. Not a lot of franchises, but it did have that originality, and they gave things a chance. Like today,
well, don't you feel like it probably brought people who had dismissed the horror genre?
It did.
Kind of made them go, oh hey.
Yeah, and I think that's because of the whole subgenre thing. Because like we were saying, a lot of these had, like you look at Seven, The Sixth Sense. A lot of these had, it wasn't just pure horror. It had that thriller and that mystery. Same with Silence of the Lambs. That wasn't pure horror to me. It had a lot of psychological thriller stuff behind it. So it really opened the gates for people, I think. And, a lot of things were books. A lot of movies were, is being adapted and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I just look at it as a very fun time for horror, in my opinion. It did take itself seriously, but at the same time, it didn't. It gave things a chance. It knew when to
have fun. And I think, and the thing is, too, is that in the 80s and in the 70s, they were heavy exploitive. You know what I mean?
Sure.
In the 90s, it wasn't exploitive. And I think that's the gripe that a lot of fans have, that it wasn't as exploitive as it should have been, and it wasn't franchise heavy. Mm-hmm. We didn't get Myers or Jason.
But you got reintroduced to H2O.
Yeah, but also don't sleep on Halloween 6.
Right, the Curse of Michael, which I am actually a fan of.
I like the producer's cut.
Yeah, I saw that.
Producer cut is much better than the theatrical cut.
And it's nice because Donald Pleasance was in it. And
his last film.
I do really feel like that one gets dismissed as well. And I actually his mask wasn't great, but
it was a lot better than in 5. I'll tell you that.
No, I agree on
with
that.
the blonde hair, what the fuck was that?
Jesus Christ, yeah. But
and I am kind of like mad that they didn't bring back Danielle Harris, because at that time she was old enough to play the mom.
Why didn't they do that? I don't get it.
I don't know.
But yeah, sorry, like I know we're moving on to a lot of things, but to get back to the 90s, I just feel like they gave things a chance. Mm-hmm. There was a risk there. Today, I don't feel like we have that. We're remaking everything, or we're rebooting everything. We're not giving things a chance like how we did in the 90s. I don't know if it's like a money issue or a politics issue. I don't know what it is, but I feel they just gave things a chance. And even though if it was to direct, VHS or whatever, you still had access to it. You still had access to watch it, So, I don't know. I think people give it such a bad reputation, but for me, I have so many fond memories with it. Maybe that's why I'm a little biased, because I was a young kid and I grew up with these. But the thing too is these made me interested in wanting to watch the 70s and 80s horror films. I'd watch Wes Craven's New Nightmare and I'd be like, oh, he did Scream. Oh, what other movies did he do?
Last House on the Left.
Yeah, so it opened that door
Hills
for me.
Have Eyes.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like everybody is just shitting on this and they don't need to. There's no reason to. They need to be more open-minded and go revisit to what actually came out.
I was reading an article and it said the 90s has solidified the horror genre as an actual art form with certain movies. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that statement, because I think that in the 90s, you did have horror movies that were taken serious by the Academy, even though sometimes they're not looked at as a horror movie. Exactly. It's like that debate that we're having now.
It helped people get away from the idea that a horror movie is just blood and guts and slasher, which
and I think that's why
just associated with, you think horror, you think lots of blood, a knife, and that it wasn't just that.
It had more story development, I feel. 90s, it definitely had more story development. You got to know your characters more, it's kind of more neurotic in a way, but so I don't, all these people that are hating on it, I don't know, you got to go revisit.
And there's a lot of gems in there, and I guarantee you that if a lot of people read this list of movies,
there's so many, we can't even go through all of them.
Yeah, we can't even, many. There's a lot of them. I printed out from 90 to 99 and that's a lot of fucking movies. But going through them, there's a lot of crap in there, but
that's every decade. There's crap in every decade.
There's a lot of crap in there, but there's also at least 3 to 4 films that are really fucking good that are overlooked.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, but I guarantee you that people rate this list of movies that are on there. I guarantee you that when it's like Shout Factory or Arrow or Synapse saying, we're going to re-release so-and-so, 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 we're going to lose our fucking minds. Like, oh my God, yes, I can't find this movie anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, like, if Blood Moon was to be re-released soon, we would all lose our mind because that's an underrated werewolf movie. Yeah. You know, if Full Eclipse is going to get re-released, we would lose our fucking mind.
Yeah.
If Body Parts is be re-released, it's like, yes. You know what I mean?
People will get excited.
People will get excited about it. And I feel like people need to understand that the 90s weren't as bad as they say they are. Yes, it's not the golden era of the slashers. That died out in 88, 89. But this was more of a psychological, supernatural. You had slasher movies. You had creature features. And there was just a lot of creativity. Yeah. And I feel that's what the 90s was because...
Maybe that's the word that we're looking for. It was the creative decade for horror.
Yeah, and not even just in horror, but in everything. If you look at TV, you look at fashion, you look at music.
It was fun.
The everything about the 90s reflected that decade.
And I think, too, because we were late 80s kids, you know, so the 90s was our childhood.
Growing up in the 90s, yeah.
We grew up, so we, like, I don't know, like, just Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Tales from the Crypt, X-Files. Like, we had there's so much out there, and it was so original. You know, now it's like I feel bad for kids today because they're not really getting a lot of original stuff.
They're not.
We had that privilege, you know?
And I think it's just because they're just lazy. They don't want to give...
They're lazy and they don't want to take a chance.
And they don't feel like originality is going to work nowadays.
Which sucks because that's what people want.
Because if you really think about it, like independent cinema is thriving more now than it was back then. Yeah. Because of the voices that are coming out of that, you know, genre. Yeah. But we do have a little fun assignment, which I assigned earlier. And
you assign everything.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, you can assign something too.
All right, I will. Well, I have assigned stuff for you.
I have done one. When a Stranger Calls Back, I did watch that.
Deadly Friend.
Deadly Friend, I have not seen because I don't know if I want to drop $2 on it yet.
Come on, it's Wes Craven.
But okay. Well, all right. Well, we'll discuss that off air.
All right.
We'll figure it out. So we were gonna pick 5 movies. Right? I don't know if it was five of our favorite movies or 5 movies of the 90s. So where'd you go?
I think mine's like a combination of both. Like these are must-sees, but these are like my top 5. Okay. Yeah.
So I kind of went with a mixture as well. Okay. There might be some crossover. Hopefully not.
But I think there is going to be actually.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It just goes to show like when it comes to 90s, these are the 5 titles we're all thinking about.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right, so let's go. Without a doubt, number 5.
You want me to go first?
You know, I'll go first. Okay. Number 5, 1992, Mikey.
Mikey, interesting. That's one you don't really hear about.
Exactly. Starring a young Josie Bozette before she was on Melrose, and Brian Bodstell as our lead character, Mikey. And Ashley Lawrence as a guidance counselor. Really? Funny enough, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And so this is about a kid that goes to foster care and goes from foster home to foster home. And if he doesn't like his foster parents, he kills them. And this fucking kid is like insane. He is fucking creepy. He's all peeping on Josie Bozette, like just like with the RCA camera, just like, ooh, I like that. It was just a very uneasy movie. I saw this when I was about 6 or 7, and then I revisited it when I was about like 12 or 13.
And that was 92?
That was 92. Damn. I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. I never seen anything like that. I never seen like a kid killer.
And that's what's great because there were a lot of. I feel like there were a lot.
And that was like, around that time you could put a child in that position and ask them to do that. You know what I mean? And I feel like you don't see that all that often. Like Orphan, you didn't get to see a whole lot. You know what I mean? Even though that was kind of an unnerving film, this is a straight slasher.
That would go good with, what is it, the Macaulay Culkin one, The Good Son?
The Good Son.
Those would be like a good
that would be a good double feature, but I hate The Good Son.
Really?
Yeah, mainly because they don't go for it.
They could have pushed the buttons.
They could have pushed it a little bit more, but because of Macaulay Culkin being Macaulay Culkin,
which was a risk, by the way.
It was a risk, but they didn't go for it like Mikey did.
Yeah, Mikey was more that's more of, I would say, R, and
I feel like
PG-13 compared to Mikey.
And that was like the last slasher. I feel like that was like the last genuine slasher.
Interesting.
To come out before like you have Scream and stuff. Yeah. I feel like that was the last genuine slasher that, that people don't talk about. And I want to see it re-released. It's on YouTube right now, not a great quality. I watched a little bit of it.
It's fuzzy.
And it's actually pretty fucking decent. I enjoy it. I
want to watch it again. I haven't seen it in like a couple years.
Yeah, and I think that this is a movie that needs to be re-released, honestly, because it's 90 minutes, and it is unnerving from start to ending.
And wasn't that kid in a movie called Point or Blank Check or something?
Yes.
He did like a lot of like family-friendly movies too, I remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he left that movie off his resume.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I remember him because he had a very like...
he was in face. A Blank Check for sure with Miguel Ferreira.
Yeah.
And then he was in a lot of Disney stuff and then never heard from him again.
I think he got into like drugs and stuff.
Oh, that is unfortunate.
Yeah.
All right, but that's my number 5, 92's Mikey.
Awesome. Okay, so mine, I'm gonna kind of go with the early start, and then like not the, I don't know the exact years, but I'll kind of like try to do it early to late. So I have a tiebreaker here. It.
Ooh.
Because it is 1990. A lot of people think it's like late 80s, but it is 1990, I believe. It is made for TV, but this scared the shit out of kids. Like, yes, you could look. I know everyone now is like, oh, the new one's so much better. It's so much more violent, blah, blah, blah. But you watch this, like, watching this as a kid, Tim Curry was scary.
Tim Curry
super scary.
Is, like, insane.
Insane.
Like that scene when he was digging the graveyard and it's like, pick one of these graves. Set that one over there. That was taken. It's already filled. It's like, dude, this motherfucker is, like, really unnerving. That motherfucker scared me off clowns for years.
And that's the thing. Kids got so scared of clowns because of him. This movie really put that on the map. And, it is made for TV, so it couldn't really be violent like the book. The book is way intense.
The book is...
The book is like rated X. Let's
it's like triple way. X, man. Yeah. It's just fucking
the kid orgy
insane.
at the end.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So they couldn't get away with a lot of stuff, but I feel like that was kind of it was more creative because they couldn't show such violent things. And there were still scary scenes. Mm-hmm. And it did follow a lot of the book. Not everything, but it did.
It had its essence for sure. Yeah.
It definitely had its essence, and it's a long movie, but I don't know, I really recommend it. And then my slash thing here is When a Stranger Calls Back, because that was also made for TV. And that was like 92, I think, or somewhere around there. And that's the sequel to When a Stranger Calls. Mm-hmm. And this movie is just...
bonkers,
the weirdest. You're not going to know where this movie's going to go, and you're not going to get who it is. There's no way of guessing his motives and how he does this stuff.
And his motives is not even clear.
No, it's not.
It's never clear.
And that's the thing that's so scary about it. Again, there's like not a lot of violence, but it's so freaking creepy and creative.
If that first 10 minutes does not like put you on edge and make you like interested in watching this movie, then I don't know what will. Because that opening to that movie is brilliant.
And it's so... Scream fans, I think, will like this because the opening scene is kind of similar to Drew Barrymore. If you really watch it and like
take it with
a grain of salt, the setup is very similar. And it is a slow burner, but you gotta be patient. You gotta be patient for things. So I definitely recommend those two for the early 90s.
My next one, number 4, is a little film starring Edward Furlong, Brain Scan.
That's getting a comeback now. A lot of people.
Yeah, that's coming. This. That's being re-released in August, and I wanted to show this movie some love because I loved this movie when I first saw it. I thought this was great. The video game aspect does not hold up as well, but it's Edward Furlong, and the guy that plays the trickster is really fucking good. He's like Tony Todd in a sense where like he commands the screen, and you just can't take your eye off of him. You know, he's just so like hypnotic, and just his performance just speaks volumes.
Oh, for sure.
And Frank Langella playing the detective, you know, he was pretty good in there too. But I really like this movie because, you know, it shows like what would happen if a kid really lost his mind playing a video game.
Which was kind of ahead of the time, I feel.
Yeah, and then it's like, it makes you question, like, did he do it? Did he not do it? And it kind of plays with that, you know, with that aspiration of it.
Yeah. And
if you're wondering why we're stumbling, it's because we have two cute cats over here, like, cuddling.
They're, like, distracting, I must say.
Yeah, and so we're trying to figure out how to get rid of them, but...
Anybody want cats? I'll give you them for free.
That's a great deal.
She's
Look,
like, fuck
they both looked over here. It's like, what, bitch?
You little fuckers. Brain Scan. Yeah,
Brain Scan. That's my number 4, and I feel this one gets overlooked and not a lot of love.
And was this before T2?
It was after T2.
Okay, so Edward Furlong. Okay, and what about Pet Sematary 2?
That was a year before.
Before Brain Scan.
Yeah, Brain Scan, yeah. Okay.
So he did a lot within those years, Edward Furlong.
Yeah, he was consistently, you know, working. And it was funny, too, because, like, he could have been big.
Yeah.
You know, he could have
drugs. He got into drugs, too.
You know, it's a sad story, too, because, you know, he was such a good actor.
I know.
And, you know, Brain Scan just kind of proves it. You know, he can hold his own.
And he had such a cool look, too. Like, that 90s cool. You think of, like, those 90s haircuts and, like... His look and his vibe was just really cool.
Yeah, he was like a young Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah, I could see that.
But that's my number 4, Brain Scan.
Brain Scan. Okay, mine, I gotta go with Misery.
Nice.
Just because,
Rob Reiner.
Oh my God, she's crazy. Kathy Bates can do no wrong. I mean, everyone knows her now because she's in a lot of the American Horror Stories. Go back and watch Misery because this will not disappoint you. This is like the ultimate stalker
Annie
fan.
Wilkes.
Yeah. Ultimate stalker fan movie. Completely crazy scene. Not super gory, but there is one scene in it that will stay with you, and I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. Oh my
God, the 2x4 and the sledgehammer.
The 2x4s and the sledgehammer. And just the control, the amount of control she has in this movie amazes me, because you always watch slasher movies and it's the masked guy, or it's a male killer that's always the one in control. And it's female this time, which is amazing.
With the male killer, it's often like it's often sexual.
And this is not sexualized
and this
at all.
To me, this is more about power.
It is power and
I feel
obsession.
And I feel like when she reads that book, she fucking flips.
She flips, and she's so into it. And I wonder if like
more of that feeling it gave.
I wonder if Stephen King had a stalker. Like, what would motivate him?
A lot of his books are like, you know, books like that are based on a certain kind of reality.
So I wonder if he had someone that was like this obsessed.
I'm pretty sure he did, because I think he talks about that too in like maybe on an interview somewhere. I can't remember, but I do remember hearing it referenced that Misery was based on some kind of, you know, real life event. That's where a fan was just sending him letters saying, don't be doing this, that, this. It's like, holy shit.
Wow.
Dude.
But yeah, so just the acting alone in this and the tension that's between the two, and it's mostly
Rob Reiner directed the fuck out of this movie.
He did. He really did.
You know, and he did another great Stephen King adaptation, Stand By Me.
Stand By Me, which is one of my favorites.
And so, you know, and King even said that he thinks Reiner did the 2 best ones out of all his adaptations.
And I wish Reiner did more horror thriller. I really do.
Yeah, I do too.
Because he's known mostly for doing like
rom-coms,
relationship movies, you know. But talk about relationship in this movie. I mean,
it is fucked up.
And they're both
which
commanding.
Why the horror or why I think they were the best. Like why that, because it seems like the other Stephen King movies, the director, whoever, focused on the horror aspect and not the relationship aspect and what made people human. And that, like with Misery, you felt
they're very human.
They're very human. You could relate to the characters.
Exactly. There's more character development.
Yes.
Like we said, how 90s, it's not just, you know, killing. This is like you get to know these characters. And she's just so great. They're both great in this movie. So
you know, it's funny too, because like a lot of men did not like turn down that role because they did not want to be in bed for the entire movie.
But that's as an actor, it's such a challenging role. You would think that they would want to, because he has to be it's a very physical.
It's a physical role, but they also didn't like the fact that it was like, like I'm playing second fiddle to Kathy Bates. Well, and it was like, it's funny because look at the names that were attached to it. Was like Denzel Washington, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino.
Which is interesting because Denzel Washington did
Taking Lives. No.
You know what I'm talking about. Bone Collector, which is kind of a similar thing. He's, has a nurse that's taking care of him. So why? Maybe because how successful Misery was.
But see, like Denzel was still on the rise. But Robert De Niro, and you have Al Pacino, and I think there was another actor that didn't want to do it. I can't remember. It was another well-known actor. But James Caan's like, fuck it, I'll do it. And you know what? I honestly could not see anyone else play that role but Jimmy Caan.
Yeah.
He was great in that movie.
You felt for him. Like, you just felt like you felt his physical pain.
Yeah.
Besides emotional, of course. But yeah, he really got into it, I feel. So it's just the relationship between the two. It's just amazing.
And the chemistry between them was amazing. Was palpable.
Yeah.
So that was your number 4?
Yes.
Misery. All right, number 3. I'm gonna go with a Stephen King.
Okay.
Adaptation, actually, directed by George A. Romero. You know where I'm going?
Know where you're going.
The Dark Half.
Great movie.
I honestly love this movie. When I first saw this movie, I was like, this is so fucking cool, man. Like, I like the fact that this artist lost his fucking mind, and then everything there, you're thinking, okay, he's losing his mind. He's losing his mind. He's like, but then it's revealed that he actually has a brother.
Yeah.
And it's an identical twin. And it's like everything that happened was real. So when he was writing George Stark, he was actually writing through George Stark.
Yeah.
And this was a mean little movie, honestly.
And also, too, back, like, very mental, Like, you really had to, like, kind of think and what is going on? Like, is it really this? Is it really that?
It was like a whodunit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny, too, because, like, when the movie starts, you're kind of thinking, oh, it's Michael Rooker.
Oh.
Because he was just coming off Henry.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, he's George Stark.
Yeah.
But then he stays, like, the good guy throughout the whole movie. He's like, oh.
Which is rare because I don't really... He never is the good guy, so it's like, what?
Which is kind of like, kind of throws you off a little. It's like, oh, but it works.
Yeah.
The ending is a little shaky with the CGI, with the birds and shit.
Yeah.
But other than that, I
and
really
what year was that?
I want to say 93.
93?
Yeah, I want to say 93. But I do want to say that this was a really good movie, and it also kind of inspired me to, like, create alter egos as well. Oh, that's why, like, the Boogeyman is, like, my alter ego. And so it's like, what the Boogeyman would say is not what Zuko would say.
Right.
And so, like, I kind of play that up in certain aspects where it's like, okay, like, so he's my George Stark. And so I really like this movie. I think the cast is fantastic. And they're trying to remake it now.
They are?
Yeah, they're trying to remake it now, which is...
Why?
I don't know.
Do they have, like, casting already? Or
no, there's no casting or anything like that, but it is on the docket. I think it's New Line is trying to remake it.
Wow.
But if they do remake it, I do want them to cast Tom Hardy.
Well, he did that. Was it Legends where he played?
Yeah, but I don't. But the twist is that I want Logan Marshall Green to play. What's his name? Beaumont, and Hardy to play Stark. Because both of them look alike.
They do look alike. Yeah.
Just one's a little bit taller. But that'd be like my casting choice. But I like The Dark Half, and I think it's a really strong movie. We recently revisited it, and like. It surprisingly still holds up. It's very genuinely creepy. And the way he beats the shit out of that old man.
Yeah, that was like...
It's like,
seeing
whoa.
that as a kid, I'm like, what?
And then each murder just gets more and more gruesome and just more violent. And the way he fucks with Beaumont, it's like, dude, like, where's this gonna go? How's this gonna end? And when they meet face to face, it's kind of like, ooh.
I remember as a kid, they used to show that a lot on, like, AMC used to do, like, late night. Like, 1 a.m. they would show, like, late night horror movies. And they used to show that on there all the time.
That was one that I used to see on TBS a lot.
Oh, they was TBS showed a lot of King adaptation movies.
Let's see, 93.
It was 93.
93. So that's my number 3.
Okay, my number 3, I gotta go with Candyman, just because it just holds a special place in my heart. Like, this movie, just seeing this as a kid, and we talked about the whole urban legend thing coming to life, and how great of a performance Tony Todd gives, and to see an African American in a horror film, which is like you never see.
Yeah.
Like, we needed more of that, and he like really opened that door, and it's a shame it didn't, really take off until now, but just like, I just watched that movie for him and the romance of it and just the creep factor, and it still holds up to this day. Mm-hmm. It still holds up.
A lot of the themes and a lot of the things that are saying there, like, it is still true today.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Tony Todd's performance, he steals that movie.
He does.
I mean, even though that's his movie,
he's not in it as much.
Steals that fucking movie.
And he's not in it. He doesn't get as much screen time as Virginia Madsen.
Yeah.
But when he's on it, you feel like you're enthralled with him. Like, he kind of like sucks you into the TV with him, because he's so his presence is so commanding and demanding. But yeah, watch it around Valentine's Day. It's just, I don't know. It's just
that's a weird connection that you make with Valentine's Day.
Well, because me, I love watching. I always try to watch like horror movies around the holidays, and to me, for Valentine's Day, it's always Candyman, My Bloody Valentine, and Valentine's.
It's funny because a friend of mine said to me recently, and I don't even know how it came up, but she brought up that movie, and she's not.
What movie?
As far as I know, Candyman, and as far as I know, she's not even a big horror. But the first thing she said it's more like a romance.
It is it's totally a romance.
So she got that from it.
Okay, good. So I'm not the only one here. Like, I really think that's a romantic horror film.
No, I agree with that too, and I think it is a forbidden romance because like there's also subtext to it that Virginia Madsen is a reincarnated version of his wife.
Yeah.
That he lost a long time ago. And that's why he's just so drawn to her. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's fucking with her, because he wants to bring her to his side.
Yeah.
Like, we can be together forever. Mm-hmm. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want that. But then it's funny because she kind of accepts when she saves the baby at the end.
Yeah.
And she accepts her fate and is like, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah, and she kind of becomes like a hero at the end with the people in that community.
Yeah.
They were scared of her at first, but then they kind of like, okay, like, she doesn't mean us harm. The ending really stuck with me for some reason.
The ending was fucking creepy. I remember seeing that. I remember seeing it like recently, and I was in a dark room, and then and then he said her name, and then the blue lights come on, and
yeah.
I ran and turned on my lights.
Even now?
Even now. Like, it's...
Well, that just goes to show you it holds up.
Yeah, it's just the power of that is just like, it's coming.
I know.
But the way that it's executed, you still feel uncomfortable in the dark about it. It's like,
and looking at mirrors, too, like, I'm looking at a mirror right now. I'm like, oh, shit, is he here?
Yeah.
Well, he's handsome. I would hope he would be here, but yeah.
Yeah, you say that now.
Hey, I have
bees start coming out of his mouth.
Until
we need more bees for the planet, okay?
And then he like frames you for murder, and it's like, oh well, I kind of wish he wasn't here now.
True. Well, let me have my fantasy, Johnny.
Okay.
I'm allowed to have a fantasy here.
All right. I won't take that away from you then.
All right. So Candyman. What
was your that was your number 2?
That was 3.
That was 3?
Yeah, so we're on 2 now.
Okay, so number 2, controversial pick actually.
Oh.
Another King adaptation.
Wow, lots of King today.
Thinner.
Thank you, because this movie does not get enough credit, and it's such a fucked up, great, also funny movie, I might add.
White Man from Town.
See, that bothered me about it.
That it was
kind
funny?
Of a comedy aspect.
Oh my god, it was oh my god.
This is by Tom Holland.
Yes,
Child's
Tom
Play
Holland.
director.
Yeah.
Fright Night.
Yeah.
Psycho 2. So like he has like comedy.
White Man from Town. Sorry.
You just got that?
No, because I remember that and while like seeing that like White Man from Town, and then he says, "I'm the White Man from Town." No, sorry.
To me, it's like it didn't bug me as much because I was familiar with like Child's Play and Fright Night and all that, and I know that's how
That's his style.
You know,
yeah.
He tries to shift the tones, but it doesn't bother me as much. But I think the special effects still kind of hold up, honestly.
Yeah.
Like that makeup on Robert John Burke when he's like getting thin and like you see his ribs and his cheekbones, like. God, it reminded me of
like Christian Bale in the Machinist.
Yeah.
Even though
not as extreme.
Not as extreme, but it had like that vibe. It totally holds up to this day.
Yeah, I think that is a really good movie. I just like cannot believe that movie does not get enough love and people crap on it for some reason. I don't know why they shit on it.
I don't know.
And that ending is a strong fucking ending.
It's a
haunting ending.
Every time I look at a pie now, or like, because my mom always makes a lot of pies, and that's actually one of my mom's favorite movies. I'm like, is this, do I really want to eat this right now, you know? But that pie, man, I don't know.
So, I have a question. Okay. Like, this is full spoilers now. Do you think the daughter died?
Yes.
Because I think she died in the book.
I didn't read the book. I'd like to read the book, but I do think in the movie.
I read the book. Maybe that's why I didn't enjoy the movie.
Oh, well, see, it's so hard because the book is always different, right? Yeah. But I think she dies. Of course, it's not intentional, but
yeah, I think she lives. But
you do think she lives?
Because he says something. He says something to him that, like, you feed this to someone that you really hate. Yeah. And I feel like he fed it to his wife, and he hated her.
Well, because she cheated on him. Yeah, she was a bitch.
And so I felt like that curse was only meant for someone, not for everyone.
Oh,
because there's like because in that scene, there's that scene in the park when they're on the bench, and he says something that's like really specific.
Yeah.
And it says like the person that eats this pie, will die.
Okay, so I think that makes sense, but I also think that we as the audience we believe, oh no, like she is real. They lead us to believe that she is gonna die, the daughter.
Yeah.
They leave that to our imagination.
And then he sacrifices himself. Yeah. At the end, it's like, well, what have I done?
Right. Because he had nothing against his daughter.
No, that was. I mean, that's his kid. I mean, how could you have anything against your own kid?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I honestly think that this movie is a good movie. It is a fun movie.
It's so fun. I mean,
that scene where the judge picks him up and the scene is like, "We're going on a drive."
No, I mean, just like when they're in the car and the wife tries to give him a blowjob, and then he it's very playful. It is very. I don't want to say kitschy, but it's very. There's definitely moments where it's a lightful movie.
Joe Mantegna as a mobster. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I mean, come on. I liked
him. He was cool in that movie.
It's like that guy was my mook though. Yeah. You don't fuck with my mook.
Right. But just like the main actor, he's just so good, and like I don't know, like I wish he was also kind of a leading guy or did more.
Who?
What's his name? Burke.
Robert John Burke. Yeah. He's a strong character actor though.
He really is. He didn't really get famous, you know.
I mean, if you watch Law and Order, then you know. Yeah. Because he's on that fucking show a lot. Well, not anymore, but yeah.
And he's got like a strong face. Like he's got that like masculine face. But he like I don't know, like I always watch that movie like if I'm pigging out on food or like if I'm on a diet, it's one or the other. So it's a very, you know, foodie kind of movie, I want to say.
Yeah, a movie kind of steered me away from cherry pies for a while.
Yeah.
Because that knife with the turn, and then you see the pie just kind of like eating it.
Ew, yeah, that one scene.
It was just like, oh man, that's gross.
Yeah.
But that's mine. Thinner.
Okay, not to interrupt your flow, but when did Christine and Cujo come out?
80s.
Those are 80s.
Yeah.
Because those are two of my...
I love Christine.
We keep bringing up King, and I couldn't remember when...
Yeah. And Christine was...
Cujo and Christine was...
Yeah.
I read those books too, but the movies I thought were really good. But not to go into the 80s, sorry.
Okay, so that was your 2?
That was your 2. I can kind of guess where you're going with your number 1.
I'm going very Craven at this point. I mean, it's Scream and then New Nightmare.
Oh, you got a tie. Okay.
Well, those are my last ones I have for the... Because I have a lot of slashes here. But I would say, like, just Wes Craven really made a comeback in the 90s. The late 90s especially, you know? He really, really shocked Hollywood, I think, because... You know, I mean, he was just known for like Last House on the Left, and then Nightmare on Elm Street came out, and then he did a bunch of other films, but Scream and New Nightmare really put him back on the map. And just Scream, just because, like, we've talked about this so many times, and I'm probably boring you with this, but that, to me, I saw that in the theater when I was 8 years old, terrified the shit out of me, and that is the movie that got me into horror. Mm-hmm. That's what introduced me to more Wes Craven, you know, also to John Carpenter films, and that just, like, really influenced me. So I really hold, like, a special place for Scream. And then New Nightmare, just because we have Nancy back. You know, we have Heather Langenkamp back, and that really... kind of I don't know the word for this, but it, you know, the way that they made that movie and how the twists and the turns and bringing acting and then her character,
real life.
her real life, it just really, it was such a different movie.
And if you think about it, it's the prototype for Scream.
Yeah, and that was prototype. 94, right?
That was 2 years. I think that was that was 93.
Was it around the earthquake? Was it 93 or 94?
Let me look. Well, keep going.
Yeah. So anyway, so that, like I guess was set up for Scream.
94.
Oh, it was 94. Okay, because remember the earthquake was like but so that just like really set the bar and
and Scream was 96. It was 2 years prior.
So 2 years, yeah. So he must have like went into Scream right after New Nightmare, because I don't think Shocker. I don't know if that was
Shocker was like early 90s, 92.
So
maybe 89.
89?
Maybe.
And then he also did People Under the Stairs.
Which was actually relatively decent.
Which I think they're remaking, or they have remade it already. They're probably going to remake Scream. Who knows? Like, at this point. But anyway, so those hold a very special place in my heart, just because those are movies I saw.
Imagine a remake of Scream.
I mean, you couldn't do that though. You couldn't pull it off a remake of Scream now. Honestly.
They already did it as a Scream TV series on MTV.
Yeah, have you seen it though? Have you watched it?
Yeah, I saw it both seasons. They're also so.
I saw the first season. I thought it was actually pretty impressive.
So there's supposed to be a third season, but because it was Weinstein,
I actually read an article that Netflix pulled the series.
They did.
From their service because they want nothing to do with Weinstein's, and they're also pulling a lot of the Weinstein films off of Netflix.
And there's so many, which kind of sucks because there are a lot of good films.
Yeah.
But
now they have to be rebranded with a new logo in order for them to like put it on there now.
So like Scream, but I heard like they shot the series already, the third season, and it's just kind of lost. Like I don't know if it's going to be on MTV. I don't know what's going on, but they were supposed to bring the original mask back. Because in the series, it's not.
No, it's a different mask. Yeah,
I didn't like it, but I'm switching off topics here, but yeah, those are like my final ones, just because I was raised with those, and those are like some of the first horror movies I saw, so that really set the bar for me and really got me influenced into horror.
I initially didn't like New Nightmare. I was like, I mean, when I first saw it, I was scared. Yeah. Like, holy shit! Like. Freddy's scary. Like, when did this happen? Because the first Freddy Krueger movie is like, okay, you're scary, and then you see like 4 and 5. I watched 4 a lot when I was growing up. And then he gets all
playful.
Yeah, and so I was like, holy shit, like, where's this Freddy? You know what I mean? So, but
it was darker for sure in New Nightmare.
But like later on, as I bought the movie on DVD, it's like I found a new appreciation for it.
Yeah.
Because I understood the relevance and its place in horror history as a launching pad for movies like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the very first movie where it's self-referential, you know, and it takes place in this hyper reality and kind of embraces its own silliness.
It's silly, but also it has a lot of character development in it too, because you have Heather Langenkamp, and she's just known for being on Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. So she gets that typecast. So she's trying to like, you kind of see her frustrations in that.
It's funny too, because when you see Robert Englund, when you see after their interview, you see Robert Englund, and he's like being pestered by fans.
Yeah.
And then in the next room, she's standing there just like looking at her watch, like,
right? The fuck up. Like, I want to go now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, holy shit. And I actually heard on interviews, just like, you know, it was actually like that for me. Like, I would never, people would never approach me.
Right.
You know, like, they would just, like, dismiss me, and, like, Robert would always get the credit. Mm-hmm. But she's done more conventions as of late, and her lines have always been, like, you know, packed.
It was kind of, what's the word? What's that word? Like, therapeutic. It was. I think this role was very therapeutic for her.
Yeah, it helped her get through a lot of things. Yeah. So that's your...
Those are my final ones.
Those are your two. New Nightmare and Scream. Mm-hmm. Okay. I am going to go with a movie that I absolutely fucking love. And that is John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness.
Oh, nice.
That is a movie that is just insane. And if you blink, you're going to miss it. Because... the way that they tell this story is
attention.
It's so complex and complicated that if you are not paying attention to even throwaway lines are very crucial to this movie.
It's very detailed.
And so if you're not paying attention, you could miss it, and that ending will not work for you.
So I think as a kid, you won't like this because I first saw this when I was a kid, and I was just kind of like, what? Like, there's
it's very Lovecraftian.
There's a lot to pay attention to, so I didn't really have an appreciation for it when I was younger.
I loved it the first time I saw it.
You did?
Back when we rented it, I was just so enthralled with everything. I was like, holy shit, what is going on? That little old lady hacking up her husband, or she's turning into something. The little kids chasing the dog, and then you see the kids eating the dog.
That was messed up.
You know, there's as a kid, you can't appreciate it because of the imagery and what they're showing you. So you're picking up on certain things like, oh, Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
The end of the world. In Sutter Kane,
subliminal messages.
In Sutter Kane, is he Stephen King? Is he?
Oh yeah.
Is he gonna end the world by writing a fucked up book?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's Sam Neill, like we said, our love for Sam Neill.
Yeah, and Julie Carmen too, who's also another underappreciated actress. You know, and I think as a kid, I was like, I watched this movie a lot as a kid. I used to rent it.
Yeah.
Like for days.
How old were you the first time you saw it?
It was 95, so I was like 10.
Oh, you were young.
Yeah, I was 10 when I saw it, and so we rented it because my stepdad wanted to watch it, and he heard good things about it, and we watched it. Like, we have movie nights, right?
Yeah.
And so we would watch it on a Friday night, and like, this is pretty fucking cool. And that soundtrack is fucking amazing.
Well, of course, yeah.
Dun, dun, dun,
Any Carpenter film is going to have an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it just from the very first frame when they're printing out the books and the music. It got me.
Yeah.
Because I was a big fan of Big Trouble in Little China.
Nice.
And so, like, listening to the music kind of reminded me of, like, okay, this is kind of what I'm going to get. But then it got so out of control. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I didn't really understand it as a kid. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I appreciated the imagery and the graphics and special effects. But as an adult, when I watch it, like, shit. Like, this whole thing didn't happen because then like I watched like The Usual Suspects, and then that was the movie that kind of made me want to like I had to think about things, right?
And that's the thing too. I think like the more you have to watch it more than once, or at least in my opinion, just because like you said, like what, like sometimes things don't make sense. So for me, I didn't really connect with it when I first saw it. It took me a while and it wasn't available everywhere too, so it was hard to find, when I was younger. But now, like, of course you can find it. But now I have more of an appreciation for it. But it's funny because I feel like It Follows kind of took some of the scenes.
It's aesthetically, maybe, yeah. I don't feel like story-wise, no. Story-wise, it's really...
Story-wise, it's different.
It's structurally very unique.
Yeah.
Because it's...
But some of the imagery, though, like some of the scenes that happen, like, oh, It Follows kind of did that or took that. You know what I mean? Like, when you're sitting and the old person, like, by the window, and then there's just, like, I don't know, some things I noticed about it.
The nightmare within the nightmare, him peeling the book cover and revealing that it's him. Mm-hmm. It's, like, little shit like that where it's, like you realize it's all a book.
It's all a book.
You're a character in a book.
Yeah.
And I feel
mind-blowing.
Yeah, and like people like that's like that ending doesn't hold weight because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But if you sit there and watch it and kind of like watch video essays and stuff like that, you kind of understand it. Because I watched like a lot of there's a lot of essays on this movie.
Yeah.
On it structurally, story-wise, and I'm like, that's fucking true. That's right. And the ending as a kid only struck me as a kid because he's sitting in the room laughing, and all of a sudden you just hear like ripping.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
But then it's like revealed that, or not revealed, but it's speculated that he turned into those things.
Yeah.
Or he wasn't those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so
makes you think a lot. That's for sure.
I really like In the Mouth of Madness, and that's my number one because I feel like that movie did not get appreciated when it came out.
It didn't.
And it getting a re-release earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm gonna order that fucker as soon as I get paid because I really want that movie on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Because that is such a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again, like I said earlier, I think that's John Carpenter's last great film.
Yeah, I agree on
honestly.
that. I agree.
So that's our top 5. So what was your 5 again?
So mine, let's rehash. So Scream, Candyman, Misery, and then I had kind of a tiebreaker here with When a Stranger Calls Back and It, and then New Nightmare.
So mine were Brain Scan, Dark Calf, Thinner. Fuck, I don't even remember the other one. I'm so bad at this. Mikey, and then In the Mouth of Madness. Man, that beer's hitting me already. Like, oh wow. So
these are proof that the 90s had amazing horror films.
Yeah, that is proof. So like these 10 films, we highly recommend you check out.
Yes.
So if these 10 films don't turn you over to the 90s saying, oh, you know, there's some decent gems here, I don't know what will, honestly. Yeah. But that's our tangent on 90s horror films. And if you didn't like it, well, you can always leave us a comment.
Or not.
Or not. So I am your host, Johnny Zuko, with
Elysa.
And that is it for us at the Bump in the Night staff. All right. Good night.
Stay scary.